Oh my. Oh my. Oh my.
You are now tuned in to the Revolution Podcast.
Yo, what's good? What it is, man? It's your boy Jay Love. You dig? We here again at the Revolution. We ready to revolutionize your mind, your emotions, your spirituality, your money, maybe even your body. Who knows? And with me today, I got a special guest. It's a friend of mine I've known. It's crazy, like over 20 years now, huh?
Don't talk about it. Don't say 20. It makes me feel old.
Nah, but you still look like a kid though. But you know the both, good black don't crack. So it's all good. I have my friend, and I'm gonna butcher your last name because after all these years, I'm still gonna say it wrong. But it's Rachel
Caban.
Galvan.
Caban. Caban. Yeah.
Caban.
Yeah. It's Puerto Rican.
Come on.
Caban.
Come on.
Like cabana.
Yeah, like come on.
Oh Lord. It's like the Latino's not even in there sometimes.
Sometimes. But I'm glad to have you here because I know, first of all, you're smarter than me. You're a lot nicer than me.
Oh, no.
And because of my stupidity, I know you might even make some sense out of the stuff that I'm going to talk about. So we will go ahead and jump right in. The first thing I want to talk about, because, again, I have conversations all the time. And, I say this, I just have questions, right?
Right.
And so, a lot of people have been coming to me because, we were talking before about the whole Black Lives Matter thing.
Correct.
And how the organization, watch my segues, I'm real good at this.
Let's do it.
All right. So, the organization is a very LGBT leaning, but even more primarily like Black trans situation.
Right.
So that being said, I want to talk about the whole quote unquote LGBT agenda.
Okay.
I got to say allegedly.
Okay.
That way I don't get in trouble. But I don't know. It seems like, and again, I'm just trying to understand, right?
Mm-hmm.
I'm a huge proponent of human rights.
Yeah.
I believe everybody should have equal rights and everything. But I feel, and maybe I'm mistaken, but I feel like the LGBTQ, I know there's some other letters I'm missing, but, community, it's almost as if, and please correct me if I'm wrong, like, it's not like even like, I feel like they want more. And I'm not being a hater. I'm just like, wow, like, man, for real, and I'm gonna get to my deeper point in a second, but am I on the right path or am I tripping or?
I don't know. I think people get very emotional, like emotionally charged in all of these regards. And so I think it's really hard because what we tend to do is we allow our emotions to lead how we are making decisions and how we view things. And it's very normal. Like in the midst of, I was watching something in regards to John Lewis and his passing.
Right.
And of course, the white people in the time that Black people were just doing extras and wanted more.
Right.
And it's like, wait, like there is a little bit of a need to go a little beyond because there have been taken back so much. Now, when it comes to the LGBTQ community, I think it is just we're asking the wrong questions sometimes. And I think we get really charged up and upset because people want to equate your sexual gender or your gender identity and your sexual preference with skin color, which feels like a choice. And I think that's where it becomes kind of challenging because I don't think I don't know the full expanse of the LGBTQ agenda. And I think that it is hard to put one label on it because there's so many people in the community. Like you can't speak for all Black people.
Right.
I can't speak for all curly haired people. Right. Right. And it's really hard. So I don't know if they're wanting more. I think it's just a little offensive and it's a little uncomfortable for them to ask what they want, I think sometimes for us. And so how we deal with that is another thing.
Well, I guess, okay, so here's a couple of my questions. So
because I'm curious, like, how would you say, why are you saying like they want more? What do you think they want that's more?
So for example, right now with the whole, since it's something that's going on.
Right.
I'm sorry. Please forgive me. Actually, I'm not sorry, but look, okay. It is not the same being LGBTQ whatever and being Black.
Correct.
It is not the same struggle.
I agree.
it is not the same experience.
I agree.
Matter of fact, I don't know of a time in history, like I get it that trans people, from my understanding, and I don't know the numbers, but that like trans, especially trans, I don't know if it's men or women, I don't know. Trans people like have been killed, right?
Right.
But I don't think it's necessarily like people are out in an agenda to kill. I think it's, and again, I could be wrong, right? That's what I'm saying.
I agree with you. I think it is different. And I think how it's received as a person of color who doesn't identify with that group, it's different.
Well, I mean,
but I also think, like, yes, I agree. Like, Black people were put specifically, like, the entire foundation of this country was built on their backs.
right.
So understanding the oppression of Black people was an integral part of America's foundations. Right. So I get that it's different. But what I focus on, and what I think is when we talk about the love revolution, right?
Right.
It's like how, like for people who are struggling with their gender identity, people who are struggling with homosexuality and their passion for God or passion for anything, like what they want and rights and their rights to love, they feel that way. So is love really love if it's not felt? And so that's where I feel like it's hard, because I can argue back and forth that the civil rights struggle is not the same. But what in my role and on your role and all of us, and even in a good discussion, is the love felt? Because if the love isn't felt, then is it really love?
Yeah. I mean, like I said, it's bothersome to me, because I just feel like, and I get it, because they want to throw in like Black trans lives matter, but it's two totally different things, right?
Right.
And so, like, I don't remember a time in history, and if it does exist, somebody please correct me, when literally you can look up like dozens and dozens of massacres where Black people specifically were hung from trees by the dozens, and in some cases even hundreds, specifically because they were Black. I don't know of any other people group that has happened to. Like, I don't know.
Well, yeah, I think they're like the Native people were treated that way. The Jewish people were treated that way. So there, I mean, it's like ideas of genocide exist throughout history and throughout the world, but it doesn't excuse the behavior or act like this is less and try to equate it. I think that's where the problem lies, where we try to equate the struggle or we try to lump some things together.
Right.
And I think that is where it becomes more of a question of how people who are leading these movements and leading these discussions are having these conversations. Because if I now am saying I want to support Black Lives Matter, but now I am also marching for trans lives, I am also marching for gay rights, like it's not a very targeted focus. And I think that's why a lot of people of color have found themselves really struggling without any good lack of leadership that can make real change, because the message is always being convoluted.
Right. And see, that's why I like you, because you are smarter than me.
I don't know. I wouldn't say that, but I will have some fun.
And I understand that, like, I come from a very, like, machismo generation. Like, I've grown a lot in my views. I know that some people seeing or hearing this are going to think differently. But, I've grown a lot, and I'm open to learn. It's just some things, okay, I have another question, for example, right? Like, and I'm going to pick on the T's for a minute, shout out to Dave Chappelle, I'm going to pick on the T's, right? But, okay, if it's cool for me to say I feel like a woman, right? And that is what we're saying is legit, right? It's a legit thing, and people should respect it or whatever, right? So then what was the big deal with Rachel Dozier? Remember the lady the white lady who passed? I mean, why can't she?
It really messed up Ask Rachel for me, just so you know.
but I'm saying, why can't she say, she identifies with being Black? I mean,
I see, but like what you're doing is disregarding or undercutting your original conversation. And I think that's the point. We can't equate the two. Like, you can't argue that people are lumping this together and then still drawing those conclusions. And I think I agree with you. I don't think it's okay for Rachel to deny her true identity. And I don't think it's okay for humans who feel like they're trapped in another body to be forced to feel like they have to conform or have to change. Now, the reality is it's a heart issue. It really, really is. And it's a culture issue. And there really aren't good places for people to have healthy conversations. I've actually counseled a number of people with dysmorphia and with people who struggle with, are young people who struggle with their gender identity, and having these conversations, like when you're sitting face to face with them and they choose every day to put on different clothes.
Right.
to tape down their breasts or to try to take hormones that are causing them to like change their whole mood and demeanor. What it does is it really changes your perspective and it breaks your heart in a different way to treat people differently. The problem is a lot of us have these conversations with no names attached. The same way white people are having conversations without knowing a black person
Right.
on a real level. Like, I
Yeah.
know that you clean for me, but I don't know your kids' names. I don't know what birthday parties are like. I don't know the food you eat and the struggle and what you cry about. And I think that is the problem with our connections with one another. And I think that is a big deal with transgender. And I don't think we can have a good conversation and a good understanding of their perspective without having real relationships
No, I
with
agree.
them.
And I would love to
Mhm.
speak because in all honesty, I've spoken with and met in my life maybe 3 transgender people
Mhm.
that I know of. So I'd be the first to admit I don't. This is why I'm asking questions.
Right,
But I
right,
don't
right.
like. I don't know. Like, can I walk up to you and be like, "Excuse"?
No. But the same way, like it's kind of like when, and I know I'm Mexican and Puerto Rican, but I'm Afro Latina too, as
Right.
well, as you know. And so you look at this and people want to touch your hair.
Right.
It's like, okay, I get that it's mystical to you, but can you not touch my hair though? Like, can you not get up? Like, oh, how is it? Like, and oh, you must know all the Tupac songs. I mean, I went to Claremont Graduate School where I was one of the few Latino
Right.
or people who looked like me from where I came from. You know, like so I was always put in these boxes. I was an English major in college. So I was like that token sometimes,
Right.
you know, in certain groups. And yeah, it's hard. So I think it's not so much about, hey, how does it feel to be gay? How does it feel to be a transgender? Like, yeah, do you feel feminine today? Like you can't have those, but it's about real conversation and real authenticity and saying, hey, like I'm putting myself in a position to be to get to know you, to know your passions, your loves, things that make you cry. And I think that was the beauty of like my role as a principal at that time at a very small school. So I was able to have these very engaging conversations with some of my young people who struggled with this. And so I would not, without like talking about God or without talking about what they should or shouldn't do, just trying to get them on track with their education and work through some of their other stuff and get them resources.
Well, yeah, because like I said, it's very difficult. I guess here's the part where I'm saying you're asking for too much.
Okay. Talk
And
to me about
and
that.
I say this respectfully. If I'm not able to have a conversation with you, how will I ever understand? Because like if I have no, and this is where like I even tell like white friends of mine, I don't expect you to understand if not only you haven't had this experience, right? But you haven't sat down with me and even began the conversation. How can you even come close to understanding, right? What
But see, what you're doing right there,
Uh-huh.
and I don't mean to interrupt.
No, go
but
ahead, tell me.
What you're doing right there is an evolved perspective for you.
Right.
That takes a lot of humility to be able to even, after you've been oppressed
Right.
as a person of color, then to say, hey, I get that you don't get it. That's growth on your end. Because
thank you.
I'm going to tell you what I'm going to say. Is like, I know I seem real pretty and nice on the outside. And I'm like, oh, I'm going to package this for you because I am all about love. But when I'm pissed, I'm pissed. And
Yeah,
you know, like when I'm
absolutely.
sitting there and I'm watching people that look like me or that look like people that I love be killed, I don't feel that positive. And I need a minute to compose myself before
Right.
I see a person who looks like the person who tried to hurt somebody I love.
Right.
You know, and so it takes a constant evolving in your spirit
Right.
to be able to get there. And even when the trauma happens once, it's one thing. Like, okay, say somebody was hurt when they were a kid and then they
Right.
grow. But then like when the trauma persists,
Right.
that's a constant growth. And so for someone like you say, hey, I can deal with white people and say, hey, I get you don't get it. That's growth. That is so positive. That's awesome. But if a trans person feels neglected, shamed, abused, who knows whatever else that oppressed that they've dealt with and never got healing,
Right.
they don't have no foundation for growth to be able to say, hey, I see that you don't understand me. Let's talk. Like that's a lot because they feel hated on initially on site.
Right.
Because and so one of the things one of my students told me once was like, I just want to be passing. I want, but he was born a man.
Right.
And her whole thing was, I want to be passing as a woman.
Right.
And that was her passion. And I was like, I didn't know how to even address that because she was a very masculine appearance, like demeanor and everything. So she had a long way to go in order to get to that place. And so that compassion, it really did kick in to understand the pain.
Well, I just feel like as a community, again, This is coming from my perspective,
Right.
being a dude who grew up where I grew up, you know, and in the environments that I grew up in, and you know, hip hop and all of that, right?
Well, yeah, I don't think it's that. I mean, you're a little bit older than me, but it ain't that much different. I grew up in South Central LA. I grew up
Right.
in like LA, and I'm Latino, and yeah, so I get
But
it.
you know, it's like, yo, can you cut me a break if I don't understand what cisgender, all the
I don't think people aren't. Do you think that they are? Have they got crazy with you for not knowing
well,
it?
like, for example, if you mispronounce somebody, right, it's a big deal. And I'm saying, yo, my bad.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't know. You know what I mean? I don't know that, like, if I just learned that some of them, and I don't like to say them because whatever, but, you know, for lack of
Well,
a
that's
way
okay.
to say it, some of y'all
Well, not
uh,
me. Just to be clear.
is on some, like, you know, I think you could call it them. Like,
Oh
one
yes.
of the,
So I recently, because I'm a teacher, and so I was recently working at a pretty liberal school that was very like a progressive, and definitely there's a move to remove gender from conversation with the intention of being more inclusive. So rather than saying, "Hey boys and girls," it was like, "Hello children," and then instead of saying, "That's his pencil," that's their pencil. You know, being like that, being very intentional with the words in order to not assume their identity,
Right.
their gender identity. Now,
But-
I don't know if I agree with all of that, because I'm even in one of my courses, when I was working on one of my schooling things, they just assume that this is the concept. We believe, most of us believe, you and I, let's just say, not everybody, but you and I, because we come from the same faith base, right?
Right.
And some of the same kind of background. We believe that gender was assigned at birth.
Correct.
Or even before birth, right? Like
Okay,
genders,
absolutely.
and you're either this or you're either that.
Correct.
But some people now, under new theories, have assumed that gender is a social construct, which means that gender is something that is built by your social experiences.
Right.
And so you're deciding what kind of gender that you feel like you identify more with, and to keep that more fluid so people can live more free.
Okay. And again, that
And
goes,
it's a pillar of the current like public education system that is being weaved into there, which is interesting.
right. And see, and this is the thing that I'm talking about, is that you, like, for all intents and purposes, for the general public,
Right.
this is all very new.
Correct.
I understand for the LGBT community, it's not new, but for the rest of us, so like, you got to give us a little bit of room to be on some, like, to get, because look, again, like, for example, I guess you could be gender fluid, meaning, you know, today you a dude, tomorrow you're a girl. You can kind of go back and forth, right? That's a thing now.
Now,
But-
I don't agree with any of, I'm just,
No.
just to be clear, there's a lot of things that I can communicate that I understand, but not necessarily that I believe is the root of it. Like, there's so much more to it. So it's just, I just want to be clear, because I feel like my facial expressions might be like, "Ugh," and I don't want it to be that way.
Right. And no, and that's
Yeah.
where I like I'm saying, like, there has to be like, come on, man. Like, you're asking a lot of people who won.
So you're saying that a lot is you want me to call you by the right surname is a lot, or the right, sorry, what is the name? I forget what it's called. Just you want me to call you
Well, no, I'm just not me. I don't care. Like,
anybody.
that's like if I get upset if somebody call me sir. Like, I ain't old. You know what I mean? Like, hey, sir.
Well, I think like the hard thing is for people who struggle with gender identity, like, you're not old as a descriptor of you. Like, oh, I'm not old yet. I look young, whatever, right? But for some of them, it's their entire identity. So they haven't figured that out. And so that's where it comes to the root of it.
But if you ain't figured it out, why it's got to be on me to figure it
They
out?
want room to be able to see. Everybody wants room. That's the thing. You want room to figure it out, and they want room to figure it out. And I think the hard thing is that so many of us come in so pig-headed. Not you. This is not you.
I'm just
But
trying to
so many
figure
of us
stuff out.
come in so aggressive and pig-headed and carrying our own issues that we can't have productive conversations. Like, here we can, and I appreciate that. And I believe that even if there was a transgender person here in this third seat,
We gonna
we
do
would
that in the future,
definitely
for sure.
have like a positive conversation. But for a lot of people, like, they don't have that experience of having any kind of positivity or any kind of conversation that's positive, because everybody's so like hurt and aggressive and moving out of their pain. And like that's what ends up happening, that we can't find a common ground.
Well, I just want to say, look, I appreciate you.
Yeah, for
because
sure.
I know with your background as a teacher, I knew that you would have some insights that I don't have. We could go on about this forever and ever and ever. I definitely want to get somebody in. I want to get somebody in from the community. I want to ask some questions because, I just think dialogue is important.
Yeah,
even
I
if we
agree.
don't see eye to eye, even if we don't agree, dialogue is important.
I agree.
And so, but I appreciate you because you already did kind of help me out. But, you know what I'm saying? We're going to get to all of that in a minute. You know what I mean? Continue. This your boy, it's J Love. It's the revolution. It's my girl, Rachel Caban. Caban, chilling with me.
Thank you.
We're going to holler at y'all in a minute, man.
Thank you for joining us. Make sure you like, share, and subscribe. We want to hear from you. Instagram @The Revolution Podcast, @JLoveOfficial, and @Mars Mindset.